Hello and welcome to this video that will describe the 7 most common submission errors for authors. My name is Joy Muli and I'm an editorial intern here at the Annals of African Surgery. And I will be taking you through this video. As we begin, I'd like to direct you to our website, annalsofafricansurgery.com, the tab called Guide for Authors. Once you open this, it will take you to a page that describes the types of articles that we consider for publication. These include original articles, case reports, reviews, editorials, short communications, and letters to the editor. This page also describes the mandatory submission prerequisites that include that the language needs to be in English with acceptable grammar and flow, the word limit for your manuscript, required fields in the Scholar One system, Orchid ID for the corresponding authors, as well as important attachments that you'd need as you submit your manuscript. The page further goes on to describe matters concerning copyright issues, ethics policies, study design and ethics, authorship, and conflict of interest, some of which I will highlight in this video. I'd encourage you, as you begin your submission process, kindly read through the whole page as it contains all the information that you'd require as you submit your paper. First, we will begin with the conflict of interest section. So in our website, in the Guide for Authors page, if you scroll down, you will reach the section that shows the conflict of interest. And this is required for all authors to reveal any conflict of interest they have when submitting their manuscript using a form published by the ICMJE, the International Council of Medical Journal Editors. So this form is downloaded here. And once you click and open the form, you'd continue to fill the date, your name, the manuscript title, and the manuscript number assigned to you on the Scholar One system, and append an X in each of the sections to show that you agree with it, as well as insert your signature at the end of the form. The conflict of interest form should be filled for each and every author, with each author having a separate conflict of interest form. By that I mean that you would have duplicate forms with each author, both the corresponding authors and all co-authors having their own individual conflicts of interest form. Secondly, concerning the copyright agreement form, as an author submitting a journal to the Annals of African Surgery, you do so on the understanding that if you get accepted, then you retain the copyright and allow the journal to publish and archive your article by the Creative Commons Attribution License. And to show that you agree to this, you'd need to go to the Guide for Authors page, and in the Copyright Notice section, download the form. Once you do so, you'll find the form where you'd fill the date as well as the manuscript title, and proceed to insert the author initials. This is the corresponding author initials at the bottom of each page, as well as append an X to each of the statements to show that you agree with the content on each page. Insert the author initials again and insert the X, and continue to do this on each and every page, inserting the author initials. And on the last page, you'd insert all the authors' full names and have them to append their signature next to their name. The last page should be filled by all authors. Concerning the Orchid ID, on the mandatory submission prerequisites section of the Guide for Authors on our website, we describe that the Orchid ID for the corresponding author should be linked on the Scholar One submission process while they're entering the author details. And the Orchid ID for all the other authors should be listed in the title page together with their names, affiliations, and the email address of the corresponding author. The common mistake is to omit the Orchid ID of the co-authors. However, the journal now requires this as you submit your paper. Concerning blinding of the manuscript, in the mandatory submission prerequisites on the Guide for Authors page, we do highlight that your main text should be blinded with no indication of author names, institution, city, or country. And if these are considered vital, then they can be replaced with our hospital, our country, etc. And the real names will be added after the peer review process. This is to facilitate the double-blinded peer review process that we undergo as a journal. And so there are several things that I'd like to highlight. First of all, in the title, if it includes an institution or country, for example, a thyroid tumor study at the Kenyatta National Hospital, Kenya, rather than stating the name of the hospital, you could say the thyroid tumor at a teaching and referral hospital in the capital city. Secondly, in the introduction, where you state the justification of the study, for example, this is the first study in Kenya. You could say this is the first study in a Black African population in East and Southern Africa, or a Black African population. Then, in the methodology section, where you state the body for ethics, do not state the name of the hospital or the institution where you received the ethical approval from, as well as do not state the patient location. For example, this paper that was recently published, this is the final version, and it includes Ghana in its title, and as well includes that there's so many mentions of Ghana, and especially in the introduction, you can see that they do mention Ghana in the time of the study, and the study reviews Ghana. And in the method section, it does mention that it was conducted at the Komfo Anokie Teaching Hospital in Ghana. However, when you're submitting your manuscript, you can follow the instructions that I have mentioned. For example, this was a retrospective cross-sectional study conducted at our hospital in a village in West Africa, something like that. So kindly make sure that this blinding process is something that you pay attention to, because it's part of the administrative checklist that we check to make sure that your paper is completely anonymized. Concerning ethical approval, all the papers that are published in our Annals of African Surgery journal would need to have evidence of ethical scientific conduct. And in the Guide for Authors page on the website, the Ethics Policies section, we do mention the specific files that you need to use. So firstly, if you're doing a case report, then you would need an informed consent form, and this can be downloaded here. Once you do that, you will find that there's space for the participant of the study to fill their name, as well as the name of the journal, manuscript number, the corresponding author. And after reading all of this, then agreeing with it, they append their signature, as well as their name and the date it was signed. And the author name, date, and signature also is appended. Secondly, in other human or animal studies, then you'd need an ethical approval letter from the respective ethics and review board. So this letter should state explicit permission to conduct the study, and the number that is assigned to the study should be written in the methodology text of the manuscript. For example, number XXX should be within the method section of your main manuscript. Then lastly, in terms of retrospective studies, then you'd need a waiver form from the ethics review board for the same. And this should state that you have been granted a waiver from needing any consent by the Ethics Review Board for the retrospective study, because you'd be gathering information from people in the past. So in all these three cases, whether a case report, either human or animal studies, or a retrospective study, then you'd indicate the ethical consideration in a statement in the manuscript. Concerning the title page and the Orchid ID, here's what we'd require of you to write. So you'd start by mentioning the title of your study, as well as insert the following author details. For the corresponding author, insert the affiliation with the school or institution, as well as the Orchid ID. Then we require the same for all co-authors, 1, 2, 3, however many they are, as well as the affiliation and the Orchid ID for all authors. Then, if your manuscript has been accepted and you've already paid the article processing charge, then you'd insert your transaction code for the APC on your title page. Lastly, concerning the references, this is within the guide for authors in the section of the mandatory submission prerequisites. So as highlighted, you'd ensure that your references are of an appropriate number, which is 40 for reviews, 25 for original papers, and 10 for case reports. Then, for your in-text references, ensure that they're enclosed in parentheses rather than having the numbers written in superscript. Thirdly, you'd have the numbers in order of citation. For example, 7 is cited before 8. And in your bibliography, make sure that the references are formatted as per Vancouver style, with a maximum of 3 authors per reference, adding the word et al. After the third author. Make sure your references, less than 50% of them are older than 10 years. Insert no dates or months or DOIs and PMIDs in your reference, and ensure that all are retrievable on the internet. You can insert the year of the publication only, but not the month or the date. And that brings us to the end of the 7 most common errors that we see in the journal submission by authors. Feel free to reach out to us in case you have any more questions via the contact details provided. And thank you very much for your attention.